Man, has KTM managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. 5 years ago, this brand was getting huge on its super light, super powerful, super high-tech performance bikes of all kinds, whether on the road, track or trail. 5 years later, the company, owned by the Peer Group, is broke and filing for a judicial restructuring. The legal details are dry and you can read about them in business publications, but the main reason for the troubles is that KTM sales have dropped in the last few years while the company borrowed money to, among other things, purchase MV Agusta. What were they thinking? And now they can't pay off their debts. So why and how did KTM go from the hip, new, up-and-coming brand producing world-beating motorcycles to suddenly sinking like the Titanic? What was the iceberg that it hit and what is likely to happen in its future? Will the new 390 Adventure R ever see the light of day? What about the brand's racing commitments? For the answers to these questions, stay tuned. And if you're enjoying the content, please help out the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. First of all, KTM is loved by many riders for good reason. The brand truly embodies its motto, ready to race, by building bikes that generally outperform their competition and win a ton of races, especially off-road. Unlike the more socially conscious Japanese brands, KTM isn't afraid to advertise its bikes doing crazy hooligan stunts and also pack them with tons of the latest and most cutting-edge tech. In short, if you want a thrill, if you want the lightest, most powerful, barkiest, and most razor-precise ride, KTM should be on your shortlist whether you're looking to shred pavement or dirt. But, and this is a big but, there are issues that come with walking the razor's edge of performance. When you push your compression ratios and horsepower figures up, generally engine reliability suffers. This has been most recently illustrated by KTM's problems surrounding camshaft failures in its LC8C parallel twins, which power middleweight 790 and 890 Duke and Adventure models, as well as 901 Husqvarna bikes. These are powerful engines and popular motorcycles, however there are many complaints of excessive camshaft wear and even some failures. One expert even ran an analysis on the metal from which they are made and found the steel to be subpar. Whether or not it actually is hard to tell, with some owners reporting failures and others stating that there is no problem even on high mileage engines. However, there's a lot of noise about the issue online, and whether it is justified or not, it is hurting sales. To be fair, there is a long history of poor reliability from KTM. I've never had a problem with my Yamahas, but can tell you that whenever a problem creeps up on a group dirt ride, it's most likely to be on a KTM or a Husqvarna, also built by KTM, than from any Japanese bike. Additionally, and this is anecdotal, I once spoke to a guy who has a business transporting people's motorcycles in his van. A large portion of his business consists of picking up broken down bikes and driving them to shops to get fixed. The number one brand he picks up, by far, KTM. The number one problem, according to him, is electrical, with the bike simply refusing to start. All those fancy electronics are great for safety and fancy riding modes, but when you operate on the pointy end of the technological spectrum, you are selling systems that have not passed the test of time, so it's no wonder that they sometimes break down. Ironically, it seems to be the older Austrian-built bikes that tend to have more issues, while newer Chinese-produced units tend to have better quality control. But a reputation for poor reliability is hard to shake and will definitely hurt sales. I could have bought a KTM 790 Adventure and had it right away, rather than waiting for my Tenere 700 in 2020. The 790 was more powerful, more technologically advanced, and cost about the same amount of money as the Tenere, but I chose to wait for my Yamaha in late August rather than get the KTM in May or June. The reason? Reliability. I was coming off another bike that let me down mechanically and just wanted peace of mind. Not trusting your bike to get you home sucks. But aside from the reliability issues, there are also the prices. KTM makes some pricey bikes. The bigger and more expensive adventure and naked bikes are about in line with their competition, but those prices are generally high. The dual sport and dirt offerings are also expensive, with a bike like the 500 EXC costing just under $13,000 US or $15,000 Canadian, and that's without dealer fees. Now for that price, you get a sub 250 pound wet weight 50 horsepower bike that can literally do it all. But it's still twice the price of a Suzuki DRZ4S, which, while it is nowhere as capable, is still pretty good for most occasions and is more reliable. So while you could argue that the prices reflect the quality and performance of the bikes, they are high at a time when a wave of inflation has stolen the purchasing power of a whole generation of young people. The type of riders who would be interested in the types of balls-to-the-wall bikes KTM makes. And I know that stocks are ripping and old farts like me buy these bikes as well, but young people don't own much stock, and with a reduced pool of customers, the sales of premium bikes have shrunk. If you're struggling with rent and your food prices have doubled in the last few years, you're not headed to a KTM dealership to buy the latest wonder machine. To their credit, KTM has a line of reasonably priced Indian-built smaller displacement bikes aimed at younger folks, but this does not offset the losses in their high-margin product sales that were lost to the tighter economy. Additionally, we have a brand that has, in recent years, stretched itself a bit too thin. They acquired Husqvarna, Gas, and most recently MV Agusta. Now, the Husky and Gas bikes seem to be simply rebranded KTMs with different bodywork and graphics. Yes, I know that there are tweaks in suspension and differences in the linkage and such, but it's not very efficient to be producing essentially the same bikes in different divisions and different factories. You split your workforce and technical expertise and complicate your supply chains. If Gas and Husky didn't exist, 90+% of their riders would just get a KTM, so what's the point? While Husky has its fans, I've never heard anyone say it's gas or nothing. One of the #1 rules of economies of scale is to streamline, and KTM needs to do this with their products. As for MV Agusta, really? Why, when you're already in unsustainable debt and with sales plummeting, do you buy a niche brand that quite frankly competes with some of your own naked and street bikes? Yet another factory and workforce to manage and bear responsibility for, and you have to go into further debt to buy them. This is like a guy living in a roach-infested apartment who drives a Porsche and uses his last non-maxed out credit card to put a down payment on a Lambo. I appreciate the passion for cars, but WTF, bro? And speaking of which, in a time when riders are moving away from sport bikes and toward nakeds, KTM decides to spend their R&D budget on developing the 990 RC, which may or may not see the light of day. I'm sure it will or would have been an amazing bike, but how many of them would KTM have sold? There are relatively few serious track riders out there and plenty of choices to compete with KTM. The bigger sales are in the road-going naked bike segment where the Dukes live. Which brings us to KTM's racing commitments, which span everything from MotoGP, Moto2 and 3, Rally, Enduro, Motocross, Supercross, Expo, and MotoGP Rookies Cup. That's a lot of money out of the budget, and some of those programs will have to be cut like the workforce has been to minimize costs and maximize efficiency. But KTM's racing is a video in itself, and I don't want to go in depth into that subject in order to keep this video a reasonable length. Suffice it to say, don't be surprised to see a reduced KTM presence on the starting grid next year, ready to race or not. Again, KTM's passion for motorsports is admirable, but a company in this much debt can't keep spending like a drunken sailor. Finally, one pet peeve of mine, which may not be a huge contributor to KTM's demise but is still annoying, is the company's propensity to put cool features on new bikes like quick shifters or rider modes, then require customers to pay extra to unlock them. I hate this. This is just a way of marking down the MSRP of a motorcycle to look competitive and then extorting the customer who wants their bike to have the same features as competitors' bikes that you don't have to pay to unlock. This may work on customers who have grown up unlocking features on video games, but holding hardware that is already on my bike hostage until I pay a ransom to free it does not sit well with old coots like me. So, is KTM kaput, and will we see any of the promised bikes anytime soon? Well, it's going to be tough to keep building bikes and paying your workforce when the budget dries up, so some of the new models may get scrapped or at least delayed. Stefan Pierer is looking for cash and is likely to sell the still valuable company assets and name. But it would take a big buyer to drop that amount into the money pit that is KTM. Names that have been floated are Indian Bajaj Auto Limited and CF Moto, a major Chinese motorcycle and ATV manufacturer. These are the leading contenders to buy a part or all of KTM. Both of these companies have partnerships to build KTM bikes or motors and have the resources to buy the brand. And they would both benefit from the technology and know-how that comes from all the racing experience KTM has. Yes, the company needs restructuring and streamlining, but KTM is a prestige brand and a feather in the cap of either of these companies. especially CF Moto as they try to gain a bigger foothold in Western markets. I for one hope this gets resolved soon because that new KTM 390 Adventure R looks sweet and I wouldn't want to have to wait for that bike. It seems to be just what the doctor ordered for adventure riders who have been waiting for a truly light and off-road capable and affordable adventure bike. Whatever happens, KTM will live on, but let's hope that some of the reliability issues get fixed and redundancies get streamlined so that the company can regain that promise and glory for which the brand is known. Personally, I'd love to see a truly reliable Husqvarna 701 Enduro, maybe with a fairing and a big tank from the factory. That would be my perfect bike. But what do you think about this whole thing? Did I miss anything? Are you riding KTM products and or are looking to buy in the future? What changes would you like to see? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, ride safe, and check out some of these other videos that may be of interest to you. And as always, may the spokes be with you.